Okay, hi everyone. This is Mr. Bai Kiefler. I teach at Victoria School of the Arts in Edmonton, Alberta, and today we're talking about headshots. So, we're not talking about how to take a headshot as a photographer. We're talking about it from the actor's perspective, what makes a good headshot. This is important because when you go to have a headshot taken, and actually probably before you have a headshot taken, you're going to want to have some ideas of what you want your headshot to have in it in terms of the lighting, composition, and just generally how you want to come across in your picture. And so some of this stuff will help us understand how to propose that to your photographer. So before we move forward, this video is closely tied to writing an acting resume. So a lot of the stuff that we're trying to pick up on is talking about different ways that we get careers and also different ways to analyze and reflect on those careers within the theater. So in fact, I know a lot of actors who are professional photographers for headshots because they know exactly what actors want. Applying audition skills, well, part of audition skills is having a resume and headshot and being able to present that headshot and being proud of that headshot. So those are some of the things that you want to consider. And then the last thing is transferring technical knowledge to new stage environments. Well, when you're getting your headshot taken, you're doing a lot of the same work that you do when you're acting. It's about how you come across, your personality, your inner thoughts and your inner workings, and we'll talk about that in more clearly as we move through the video. And then of course the last three things are for real world connections. So as we've already talked about, auditions is a huge thing. Reflecting on what types of roles you could be cast in based on how you're perceived in your headshots. So if I'm going for maybe what's seen as the antagonist role, I might put in a different headshot than if I'm going for the protagonist, or if I'm going for a historical character versus a modern character. And that's not to say that you need a different headshot for every single one. In fact, we're going to talk about that. It's just to say that you want to choose carefully so that you're perceived the way that you want to be. And then lastly, of course, is photography appreciation. As I've suggested, this is actually great for directors as well. It just gives you a better sense of composition and how complicated and complex the art of bringing a single image together can be. So let's move forward. Starting off generally with personality, not pizzazz. In general, your headshot needs to have personality, not pizzazz. Now, that's not to say if you have a personality that people might describe as having pizzazz, that's great, but you don't want to put that pizzazz on yourself. So as we can see very clearly between these two pictures, they're quite distinct. Now, they're also years apart. One is more recent, and the other one is from back when I was working at a historical park. But the things that I want to draw your attention to is that I'm just looking at the camera here. There's nothing fancy in the background. The clothes I'm wearing are, clothes that you see every single day. They're nothing unique. I think it just tells you who I am. Now, I'm not going to say exactly what I think it makes me look like, but because you're going to look at this photo and you're going to see something different. If you're one of my students, you're going to see me as your teacher and probably have already have some preconceived notions of who I am. If you're brand new to me and you've never seen me before, you're going to look at this and think of something totally different. If you're one of my colleagues or my friends, again, you'll look at this and see something different. And if you're a casting director, each casting director will look at this and see something different based on what they're looking for in the roles that they're casting. Back over to this guy. What I see in this photo is I see a wooden building in the background. I see sort of a historical shirt, what looks like, and what I know to be, a deck of cards, an Assumption sash, or what's called a Métis sash. So this is me putting a lot on this picture. Now, this is not a headshot. It's just a picture of me, but I've seen people use this kind of stuff for headshots before, and I'm just telling you that what I focus on as a casting director is all the stuff in the background and then this epic gaze off to the middle of nowhere. Now, you just don't want to rely on this kind of picture for your headshot, because what ends up happening is they get so distracted by everything in the background. And it's not really about who you are. It's not really about your personality. It's about, the picture that you set up. So I would just recommend that you move on from that. So the second thing we want to talk about is eyes. Eyes. Now, this is a joke headshot that I took a long time ago, but what I think it demonstrates really well is my eyes are not very good. In fact, it just shows it's more of it really is a comedic headshot, and that's how it would be taken. I think the directors might get a laugh at it, but they're not really going to go, oh yeah, I can see who this person is, and they might not take you seriously. Because remember, you're likely submitting this headshot well before they actually see you. So if this is their first impression of you, it's not likely what you want. Now, going to this one, this is more of a professional picture. But again, you don't really see my eyes. My eyes are looking down at a piece of paper, similar to this last photo where my eyes were looking up at something epic. We're not really getting a sense of my eyes as a person. We're getting my eyes as essentially a character. And we'll talk more about the costume and all that stuff later. But the focus is you're not looking at my eyes. Whereas if we come to this guy here, the focus is clearly on the eyes, and that's actually a really important thing that you can talk to your photographer about, and you can be checking in as they're taking these pictures to say, hey, can I see these? Make sure that their focus is on your eyes. And any good photographer, this shouldn't be in question at all, but you get a little bit of the shine from the lighting. The focus is clearly there because that's where your attention, not just because I've drawn red circles, but that's where your attention is going to go to immediately. You get a sense of who this person is. Again, this is an older photo of me, but I think it does a good job of suggesting what my personality is. So yeah, you want to focus on the eyes. Okay, framing, lighting, and backdrop. So starting back on this picture that we talked about, framing, if you know much about framing, which probably a lot of you do because we're in the Instagram generation and we're really good at taking pictures of ourselves. But in essence, you frame a picture into these spots, and good framing dictates the rule of thirds. So you want, for things to be focused, you either want the main portion to be in a third section of the picture, and then the focus, of course, like I said, is on the eyes. So in this one, the focus is clearly on my eyes because the framing is in thirds, and then the intersection of those thirds. I'll show that one more time. The framing is in thirds, and the intersection of those thirds is my eyes, and really my whole face. So that's a big part about framing. In terms of lighting, my face is well lit. Again, like I said, my eyes have that sort of little bit of glint in them. So that's great. And then the last thing is the backdrop. You'll notice, of course, that the backdrop is neutral. Just a peek behind the scenes, this was actually a picture taken outside. So this is natural lighting against an outdoor gray wall, and the photographer just pulled focus onto my face. And so we got a great picture. I'm actually leaning, my butt is up against the wall, and I'm leaning forward off the wall. I'm kind of doing a squat sitting. That's just also to bring my face more forward into frame. So again, there's some little tricks good photographers will know to help keep your face in frame. Now we go over here to this photo. This is actually another picture of me from a show. The show is called Drinking in America. How can you tell? Because there's a bunch of cans stacked in the back in the shape of an American flag. But the point is you still get that little bit of glint off of my eyes. So the lighting isn't necessarily bad. I mean, my personality could be better for sure. But again, like I said, it's a show photo. But again, in comparison, the framing is pretty much the exact same, right? The focus is on my face. A little bit wider of a shot. The lighting is actually internal lighting, as you can probably tell because it's quite extreme. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't want it to be maybe quite as extreme as this. This side of my face is quite dark. That kind of comes off across as a bit of Phantom of the Opera-esque. Again, with the personality, all of a sudden I become the Phantom of the Opera. Anyway, my point is the lighting isn't horrible, but the background is distracting. So just like we talked about previously, we're looking a lot at the cans and the image. So you might be a really proud American, but you know what? Maybe in this photo, that's not an important part. Or if you're really proud American, maybe wear a t-shirt with the American flag instead. But in this case, because it was a show photo, we did that on purpose. We want the people to go, oh, what's that in the background? Oh, I understand what the show is about. But for a headshot, not as great. You'd see how a neutral background would be more helpful there. Now, in contrast, you can come down to this photo. And again, another older photo. Natural lighting. The lighting is fine on my face, but the focus is not on my eyes. There's no glint in my eyes. And also the background is very distracting. You get the sense that this guy's a nature man. That's totally fine, but I find the background to be quite distracting. This is a great Facebook or Instagram picture, which is what it was, a Facebook profile picture. But again, not something you want for a headshot because of the background. You want to neutralize that background and probably also lose the hat. And then finally coming back to this one, again, you can see the focus is on the eyes. The background is neutral and the framing is approximately in our thirds. But I do want to point something out. I'm wearing glasses, and so where does most of that glare go? That light goes to the glasses, and that's something you want to be careful of. If you always wear glasses, you probably want to wear them in your headshot, but in general, you want to avoid glasses if you can, because it can take away from the focus on your eyes. So again, framing, you want yourself in those thirds. Lighting, you just want it to show your whole face without being too dark. And again, getting that light reflection in the eyes. And then your backdrop, again, more neutral, not distracting. So a nice gray or gray here. Something simple. A sort of a medium gray background is good for almost any complexion of skin. So that's something to consider, is you want that gray background. And so there's one other thing. Keeping it simple. So again, do not, as I suggested in the first photo, which is this one, do not do costumes, do not do props, and do not do too much makeup. I think most of these photos should be self-explanatory, but again, just so we are all on the same page. So yeah, dressing up as Shakespeare for a headshot, really going to limit you option-wise. Dressing up as a soldier for a headshot, look at all that makeup. Again, these are all show photos or from other moments, but you don't want to dress up as the character that you want to portray in a headshot, and also it's an incredibly expensive lifestyle to get a different picture for every single role you're in. You want to maybe dress with the suggestion of that. So if you're looking to be a businessman, maybe your headshot, you have a dress shirt and a blazer, and that same picture might be able to be used for, if you're playing a soldier. If you have a bit more of a, not flamboyant, but a bit more of an interesting shirt on, maybe that character can do for the Shakespeare or for the settler. But when it comes to makeup, you want to show your natural skin, because they'll apply the makeup for the role that they want you in. You don't need to worry about putting on the makeup, because if you go, hey, this is who I am every single day, then they will never see you. If you're wearing tons of red lipstick, they're never going to see you as the innocent next door neighbor. If you're wearing, tons of blue eyeshadow, they're always going to see you as the 1920s flapper and never as, a contemporary performer. So you want to make sure you're presenting with the canvas that they're going to paint on instead of a finished product. And that's actually that's part of how modeling, as an example, is different from a headshot. A model wants a variety of headshots, and they definitely want to include makeup sometimes, because they want to see how your face takes makeup. And you're presenting a finished product when you're modeling, especially when you're modeling for photography. They want to see your finished product. Whereas, like I said before, when you're doing acting, they want to see the canvas. You as an actor are going to take that character and turn it into a beautiful portrait, but they want to see your blank canvas for now, and that's part of what a proper headshot is. So the last thing is just the idea of keeping it simple. So these are some pictures that have, in terms of makeup, costumes, props, they're less so. I'm going to just identify a few things that I think, again, we could lose the hat. We've already talked about the background. And then, of course, the same thing with the background here. This is sort of that idea of pizzazz, this headshot. There's a lot of pizzazz in the background. It almost feels like a 1980s glamour shot. But the thing I really want you to focus on is some of the clothing that I'm wearing, right? A black and white striped shirt, no problem. Yeah, you can have a little bit of pattern in there. Definitely a black t-shirt, no problem, but you can see you can't really get any definition of where my arms are supposed to be. This is a patterned shirt that, again, it's okay to have a pattern. It's as long as it's not, too loud or distracting. I got a nice collared gray shirt here, and then even this one is sort of a bluey gray. But again, you want those neutral clothes in your headshots, because again, you want all the focus, as much of it as possible, to be on your face. What do they usually call this in the business? Your moneymaker, right? So that's what you got to be careful about. That's what you want people to focus on. And keeping it simple, having a neutral background, good lighting and good framing, as well as not adding too much pizzazz. That's all going to help your headshot be very professional. And so when you hand that in, they're going to call you in for the role, very likely, because they're going to see that you're a professional as long as you match that role. So we've seen some examples of my own headshots. Your task is to take the headshot quiz. If you're in my class, I've posted this on Google Classroom. If you're not, then I'll have it at the bottom of this video. But you want to match the headshot with the elements that best describe its composition. And I'll give you some options there, but it really is just about you testing yourself and going, oh, like, do I understand the elements of a good headshot? And then afterwards, I just suggest you search the internet for some photos of your ideal headshot. What are photos you've seen, pictures of other people you've seen that you like a lot? And once you have compiled those images, save them, because that's what you're going to take to a photographer to have those pictures taken of yourself and say, I like the framing here, I like this, how do we get this to happen? And you're going to send that to them ahead of time so they can sort that out before you get there for your pictures. And then just some reminders. Personality, not pizzazz. Eyes, eyes, eyes. Make sure you have good framing, lighting, and background, and a neutral outfit, which includes makeup and no props. Anyway, folks, thanks so much, and I hope you enjoy figuring out how to get your headshot taken.